wide accessible. Okay, so that's out of the way. We can access it any way we want now. Going back to the book, and we now need to accurately populate the resource and the user role objects. As much as we created them, the classes, we haven't actually created any objects based on these classes. And this is where we're going to do them. Now the user role, I am actually creating the object right here, but that's because I am assuming that I'm not going to need these assertions anywhere else. But if you want to check assertions on multiple sections of the page, yes, you're going to have different resources, but you will have the same user to check. So you may also want to do this somewhere near Bootstrap to make sure that the user role is accessible application-wide. But for the purpose of this simple example, I am only assigning it for this particular method alone. Oops. Nope, not you. There, that's better. Okay. And now an object Okay, this is so complicated. I can imagine many questions pouring into my forum, but that's alright. I will explain any additional questions to the best of my abilities of how to implement this in other projects. And basically all I'm doing is getting an object for the currently logged in user and an object for the current resource. So you want to have a separate object for every resource in your program. My current resource is the comment. Now don't get confused. You don't want, well, you might, but you don't really need it right now. You don't need the object for comment. You want an object for comment resource. That's in terms of ACL. So don't mix those two up. The comments are alright by themselves. This actually has absolutely nothing to do with the comment itself. This is strictly for the ACL resource object that has an ID of comment. The actual comment is unaffected. Okay, so we got these objects created based on those classes we defined earlier. And now I want to set the ID for each comment. Now I don't want to have a resource for each comment. That's going to be quite a waste of memory. Instead, I am going to dynamically change the comment ID, or rather owner ID, in my comment object. So I'm going to assign the owner ID, and I'm going to check if the current user is allowed to edit that ID, and then once it loops over, I'm giving it the next owner ID, and then checking if the current user is allowed to view that ID, and so on and so on. So instead of creating a separate resource object for each comment, I'm simply changing the owner ID each time. You can use your creativity here to change this up as your project needs to. And I didn't also bother to create a setter method for this. I just used the public thing. And of course I am getting the user ID on the comment. So what I'm doing is getting the user ID from the current comment, and I am putting it inside of the owner ID of the resource interface implemented object. And then I'm rewriting it for the next comment. In so doing, I'm recycling this object for every check. Okay, fine enough about that. And now I want to perform the actual check on the owner ID. So remember that the role ID has already received the user ID from the Zend auth, and it's a part of construct. So once we created the user role here, the user ID was already automatically populated, and since it's ready, we should have no problems comparing it to the owner ID we just set above. So now we need the Zend ACL instance, which we are going to get through the Zend registry, and our familiar isAllowed method that must have the user role. So you should recognize that this is where this is coming from. So all the previous rules apply. You must have the role, whether it's a guest, user, or an admin. Those are still in place. We are passing in the comment resource object, and we are passing the privilege. So once again, we are using the same convention of role, resource, and privilege. So we're checking whether this particular user is able to edit this particular resource. In this case, that comment with that comment ID, this comment ID. What makes the result different of this typically looking isAllow method is the fact that I have a fourth parameter that points to the assertion object that we created earlier. So the users is still there, the comment is still there, the edit is still there. So that's going to be true, true, and true for this section here. But because now we have a fourth parameter, it's not going to just stop at checking the role, resource, and privilege alone. It's also going to see whether the return of this function is true or false. So just a simple addition of a fourth parameter extends the features that much further. So even though if this is true, but this is false, the entire isAllowed is set to false. And if this is true, if that's true, and this is return a true, then the isAllowed is given a true value, and we are able to edit our entry. So let's see what the whole thing looks like in our project. We're in a book list. We are looking at our comments, and there we go. I'm now logged in as John, and notice how I have the edit link only next to the John name. If I log out and I log in as a different username, notice how I have the edit link only to Alex now, while John doesn't have anything next to it now.